Baylor's Yves Missi has broken into the first round of the 2024 NBA draft in a big way. This is Floor and Ceiling, let's break him down. Yves Missi is a force to be reckoned with at the rim. The Belgian-born Cameroon center stands at 7 feet tall with a massive 7'6" wingspan and a rumored 9'1" standing reach. He finds it very easy to play and finish above the basket due to his hops and huge catch radius. Missi is not necessarily a unique prospect. His role on the floor on both ends will always be kept relatively simple, but he is a plug-and-play center who can be very effective with what he does. So far in his freshman season, about 77% of his total shots are at the rim. There, he's converting at a 72% clip, while he averages about 2.5 dunk attempts a night. Missi has awesome tools, and he gets the most out of them. The Baylor big has solid hands and a quick spring. He's an obvious catch-and-finish threat given the shots that he takes and where he takes them. As we will get into, Missi needs consistent service to be productive, but there's nothing wrong with that. After all, the NBA is a pick-and-roll league, and Missi will have lots of gravity as a screener and roller. Given his tools, he will always have the means to take very efficient shots, and we're already seeing this season that he can excel in this simple role. Looking ahead to the NBA, there are plenty of centers right now with a similar makeup that give Missi a clear path forward. Think about Clint Capella, or more recent draft prospects like Isaiah Jackson, who Missi reminds me a lot of, or Mark Williams. Those guys are not who you build a team around, but they can be very important pieces of a roster. So far this season at Baylor, Missi has been fed very well, but it's even more enticing to think about him playing next to NBA caliber playmakers. As we've seen, I expect Missi to eventually be a monster in the paint, dunking and finishing everything out of pick and rolls and drop-offs. And not only will he score himself, but he pulls defenders into the paint with his athleticism and finishing, which in turn opens up looks for his teammates as well. Missi is also incredibly productive as a rebounder. He's averaging a little over 6 rebounds per game as a freshman, but keep in mind that he's only playing about 20 minutes a game. Per 40 possessions, which I think is more reflective of his overall potential on the glass, he would gobble up 12 boards a night. For comparison, this would slot him at 2 behind Hunter Dickinson or 3 rebounds behind Zach Edey, multi-year players who dominate the boards at the college level. More advanced numbers point to Missi's potential as well. He's nearing a monster 20% offensive rebounding rate, and he's also very dependable on the defensive glass. With his physical dimensions and vertical athleticism, this is exactly what teams are going to want to see from Missi. But beyond the numbers, he also very clearly passes the eye test. Rebounding is very important for bigs, and I'm always a little hesitant about 7-footers who cannot control the glass. Yet, I think Missi can do this. He's a constant tip dunk threat since he times himself off the ground very well, and combines that with his explosiveness and force. The Baylor center's motor also stands out with his persistency on the glass and his capacity to make multiple efforts. I can see all of this translating into the NBA, and I expect Missi will only get even better once he continues to get stronger. Until now this season, 1/4 of his shots at the rim come on putbacks after offensive rebounds. This is extremely valuable, and even when he's not going back up himself, he's giving his team an extra possession, which matters a lot in today's NBA. Diving into the rest of Missi's offensive game, well, there isn't that much to get into. As I said earlier, I don't consider this to be a negative. After all, Missi is effective in his role, and there's a clear fit for him in just about every NBA team. Missi might not do quote-unquote much, For instance, he hasn't taken any threes, but he projects very well in what he does do. Still, it's worth considering that this gives him a lower ceiling than many other prospects. For all intents and purposes, Missi cannot create his own offense, and we've seen as much this season in the few times that he has tried. Missi cannot handle, he can't really put the ball on the floor at all, he's not creative, and I don't think he has great touch given his 49% from the free throw line. Fortunately for him, creating his own shot is almost certainly never going to be expected from Missi. So, despite that lower ceiling, it also opens up a much safer floor. There have been some very scarce glimpses in the post, but again, I don't expect Missi to get the ball down low and have his team let him go to work that much. Some improvement though would be nice, especially for when teams try putting smaller defenders on him. And a simple move like this rip through would also be a nice go-to down the line. In regards to playmaking, this is not what Missi does. He has 3 assists all season and he's posting a 1.6 assist rate, which basically means that he never directly facilitates for others. The good news is that he does not turn the ball over. The Baylor big averages under 1 turnover per game, but this also speaks to how few decisions Missi has to make. So although Missi is not a passer, it is definitely worth paying attention to how he creates space for others through his screens. Missi is a big body at 7 feet tall, and he has a nice frame that is bound to bulk up. Moreover, he is physical with his picks, which gives his guards time and space. This is great in the pick and roll like we saw earlier, but also when it comes to any type of off-ball screening action, which I'm sure Missi will have to do more of in the NBA. Yves Missi is also a force at the rim on defense. He's averaging a little over 1.5 blocks per game with an impressive 8.5 block rate. The great thing about Missi is that he combines a stellar athletic profile with legitimate production on this end of the floor. In other words, he understands how to leverage his height, length, and pop into blocks, steals, and stops. Starting in the pick and roll, which is what Missi should see the most of in the NBA, I see some pretty positive signs for a 20-year-old prospect. The Cameroon center is a very good mover. When Missi has to backpedal, he has quick hips to turn, and he is really fluid and on balance while he sizes up the drive. Then he gets up off the floor fast, which is dangerous with his length and reach. When the Baylor prospect is disciplined, his timing is great, and it's honestly pretty hard for ball handlers at the college level to get a step on him, especially in drop coverage. Thanks to his physical proportions, Missi is tough to shoot and pass over. We can see that here, for instance, as he alters both the drive and the possible lob pass over the top to get a stop for Baylor. Missi still has some clear room for improvement, however. He can make up for this at the college level sometimes thanks to his athleticism and size, but it will be a steeper learning curve in the NBA. The Cameroon center can still get better at taking away angles since he's pretty inconsistent about positioning his body. Also, I really want to see him play with more active hands. Even though Missi has a quick leap off the floor and he takes up a lot of space, he can play with his hands by his side quite a bit, which reduces his effectiveness. Like right here, I feel that the pocket pass ends up being way too easy for the ball handler to deliver. Missi can also stand to be more disciplined, though this is not a huge deal at 20 years old. Still, with his tools, he could benefit from understanding when to stay down and take away shots more often, rather than trying to block them, which is what he's more prone to. If Missi chases rejections, he can take himself out of position, which can give up rebounds or putbacks to opposing bigs that his guards do not have a great chance of contesting. The Baylor prospect is also a little foul prone right now at nearly 5 per 40 possessions, so I could see him having some foul trouble early on in the NBA if he doesn't start to iron this out. All of this is fixable, but it can also be those little details that make him play 15 to 20 minutes a game instead of 25 minutes to 30. I want to see more of Missi against switches, but generally I'm encouraged by what he showed. Keep in mind, he has to guard in space in the pick and roll a lot, and he moves very well. So some of those same principles will translate against guards and wings who will have to face his mobility and size. Missi is not going to be a crazy switchable defender, but I think he'll be fine holding his own for a few seconds in the future. Touching on his physicality, it's also worth going over his defense in the post. At around 215 pounds, Missi does have room to get stronger. This has been an issue a few times this season, but I'm not sure Missi will face too many post-ups and single coverage in the NBA. Outside of the absolute best bigs in the league, most centers do not really post up anymore, so this is more about how Missi will have to continue working on his body. Overall though, I'm not concerned. Missi has a solid frame which will support added weight like I mentioned earlier, and he's already capable at times of offsetting this with his massive length and reach. Yves Missi might be a low ceiling, safe floor prospect, but I think he has everything it takes to be productive in a simple role that is very much still needed in the NBA. Right now, the Baylor big is 20th on my big board, but I could even see him getting into the lottery. Missi is a two-way above the rim spacer who can catch lobs and finish plays, and then on the other side of the ball, he ends plays with his pick and roll defense and rim protection. There's nothing flashy about his game. For example, he's taken no threes this season, and you're not gonna go to him to get a bucket, but I'm fine with that. Still, Missi is gonna have to get the absolute most out of his game. He's gonna have to excel at all the fine margins, setting great screens, staying reliable at the rim, and becoming more disciplined on defense. Like I said, he can be a 25 to 30 minute center, but I think the difference between that and playing 10 less minutes is all about those small details. As always, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, make sure to leave a comment telling me what you think of Yves Missi, and if you enjoy the channel, if you want to watch more content like this, make sure to subscribe. Take care, and I'll catch you guys next time.